So you want to be rich. Well, no matter how much money you have, there is something that nobody can ever take away from you. What is power? How is it taken? How can you reclaim it? And what does that look like in real life? I'm Alexa Van, and this is the Bad Creatives Podcast, where I talk about what I'm working on and what I'm working through as a weird little AuDHD fairy living in the world. So stick around, because we're going to bash some billionaires right now. Just kidding. I mean, I might, but that's not like the total point of the show. The bad creatives, yeah. We often don't feel free. We don't see that we're free because we feel stuck. We look around us and we go, I'm stuck because of my circumstances, because of my life, because of how I'm feeling, etc. I'm not one of those people that's going to say, all you need to do is switch your perspective, because sometimes it is what it is. But there is one thing that no matter what's going on in any situation, nobody can ever take away from you. And that is the ability to see past illusions to the truth. Truth may seem like this philosophical idea that isn't really anything anybody would want to live for. But when you can see the truth and you can see what's real past whatever BS people have dressed up on themselves or in their life or in the news, then you can see through it. And then you aren't going to be falling for it. That sounds pretty free to me. So yes, we are humans living in the material world, absolutely. But that's not all that there is. Because reality for you is different than reality for me. Reality for a dog is going to be really different too. They smell their way through the world. They can't see what we see. If you ever do any research on the crazy critters that live at the bottom of the ocean, they have powers that we could never comprehend. So let's not get too tripped up on being able to define what is real, because what's real for you isn't real for me. We could just keep it there. You really should look up those sea creatures that have powers that do not seem like they could possibly be on this planet. Oh, it's not just creatures in the sea. There was a pigeon in there. Whatever. All I'm saying is reality is trippy. Okay, now I'm sounding like a stoner. Some people are really, really good at building themselves up to look good on the outside. But on the inside, they're empty. Oh, you could have less than them in the material world, but actually be rich, free, and very full. You could have things that they could never even imagine. You have the ability to do that right now. And in no way in hell am I going to tell you that it's the easiest thing ever in the world to do, because although in theory it could be the easiest thing ever to do, to believe something, I would say for the most of us, we get to where we are because of a long line of conditioning and programming and inheriting things, and a lot that takes a second to reprogram, right? It's hard to unlearn things. It takes self-reflection and constant pausing before reaction to ask, do I really want to have this reaction? Do I really want to say this? Do I really want to do this? What am I creating? It takes immense self-awareness, and sometimes we're just trying to get through the day. When you're on autopilot, you're probably not going to stop and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is this what I really want to do? As we are reprogramming our insides, that will absolutely reflect on our outsides. But we have been taught that if I just change everything outside of me, then I'll feel better on the inside. And I think it's safe to say that although we may feel more comfortable and we may feel sometimes satisfied by that, but there's still this like deep unrest. However, when we change our insides and we let that reflect on our outsides, it almost becomes irrelevant what's on the outside, because we don't really need it in the same way that we needed it before. It holds a lot less power over how we feel. If you ever think about the wheel of fortune, it's a wheel and it's going around and around. And so if you're on the outside of the wheel, you are at the mercy of any situation, any circumstance, anything that happens in your life. But if you're at the center of that, if you have inner peace and you know what's true for you, you're going to be a lot less whipped around by that. We're also going to feel like, I don't really need to try to control everything outside of myself in order to feel okay. The circumstances of my life are not an extent of who I am anymore. I don't need them to look good to prove anything because I know I'm already sexy. I'm sorry. I try not to be really lame, but it's not possible. Anyway, this feels really important and really imperative to me to talk about because although I'm slipping into TED Talks territory, the world we're living in right now is in such a point of tension here. And so many of us are starting to feel crazy. And I'm familiar with how it feels to feel crazy. I feel like I came into this world pretty grounded, quite wise. Like I saw things very clearly for what they were, almost like I saw through that illusion quite naturally. Like that's like just an innate thing that I have. However, I lost that ability and traded it for survival mode and masking. But at the end of the day, it comes down to I didn't feel safe. I felt there was a lack of things. So unlearning those things was really difficult and layered, but possible. Every single time I thought that I had figured something out, I realized it was just one layer, but there was like a deeper one underneath. And I had to now look at that because we can keep going deeper and deeper. I like to go deep. So if we have the ability to create a mask, a facade, a persona, that means we also know what is real because we're creating something that isn't, or that, well, now it's real, but we also know where that came from, right? We have to have some point of reference. So deep down, we know the truth. And it took a lot for us to have to go from knowing that truth to believing and buying into and living this way with all this bullshit all the time, and now believing that that is the real life. So basically, we just have to be inundated with lies all the time, every day. Lies like, this is what you should look like. This is how you should get ahead. You need this, you need that. This is the kind of car you should have. This is the news. This news is totally real and 100% based on facts. Haha, said no news anchor ever. So when would you even think to ask yourself, what do I really want? Is it all of this, or is this just what everybody else is telling me that I want? And have you ever given yourself the ability to have that? Or have you always been controlled by everything outside of you? So you don't even know, you've like totally lost your point of reference. Like everything outside of you has infiltrated you so deeply that you really feel like I'm living my dream life and this is exactly what I want. But really, why? Is it really what you want? Because if that were true, why do you feel like you're never satisfied? Just saying. I just have a hard time believing that people would be living the way that they're living if they really felt good and if they really felt free. I have a hard time believing that people would be exploiting others, kicking people around, taking advantage of everyone, and being so greedy if they really felt safe and like they had what they needed, and if they really felt like they were living the life they wanted to live. So where do we get off track? And why did it become rebellious to know what's true and to state that? It should be the other way around, where it's weird to like exploit people and use them and to live in a constant state of debt and exhaustion. But I guess, call me crazy. Rebelling is really just going against the grain, against the status quo, being non-conventional, I guess. But we're so fucking far off track that now we have to rebel just to get back to our nature. That's insane. So how do we do this? How do we rebel against everything that we're inundated with at all times to make it back to our true nature? It starts with being fed up. But it can't be the kind of fed up where now you want revenge. It has to be the kind of fed up where now you really just want peace. It has to come from valuing truth. Because if you don't value truth, you can always be bought. There will always be a price higher than your values. That's why so many of us are so exhausted, because the cost of what it takes to live this life has exceeded its value. It has exceeded what we've been given back. It's just not worth it anymore. And I think now that's why we're so inundated with fear. Not that that's anything new, but I do think over the last year it's become way more, because now, if we can't control you by trying to convince you that this is super great, then we'll control you by trying to freak you out. Oh, billionaires, you're so great. Billionaires felt so free. They wouldn't feel like they needed all that money. They're hoarding all of it because that's the only way that they can have power over others. So we're kept in fear Because if all of us realized and owned the fact that this doesn't make sense anymore, we'd stop. What do you value most? What is the cost of that? And what are you trading for it? And when somebody tells you who you are, do you just believe them? Do you give your authority away? What would it look like to take it back? When I talk about reclaiming power, I don't mean as an abstract idea. I mean something very specific. The way that my power was taken away from me was by being convinced that there was something wrong with me. For a lot of my life, I thought I was crazy. I thought that I was lost. I was too far gone, and that I didn't know anything. Because what I seemed to know and feel was real was not what I was seeing reflected outside of me. I had totally lost my ability to trust myself. I thought I got sober, I'm a loser, I fucked up, I messed up my life, I don't know how to do anything, so I'm just gonna listen to other people and let them tell me how to do better. And it took me a decade of feeling crazy and looking outside of myself and giving my power and my authority away to other people who I thought knew better than I did about what was best for me before I finally realized, you guys don't know what you're talking about. What you're saying isn't true for me. And that's not ego. That's me trying for years to do what you said would work and finding it didn't work for me. So at what point am I going to say, hey, I guess it's time for me to try another way? And I don't even know if it's true for you because I'm looking at you and I don't want what you have. And I don't know why you want what you have because you don't even really seem happy. I guess you could say I was looking to the wrong people. I kept digging, and it took me some time before I came across the information about autism and neurodivergence and to realize that was likely what was factoring into my life, and I didn't know that. And I remembered very distinctly the point when I realized, oh, well, there's people who really benefit from me not knowing this about myself. Because the second I had a real reason, a legitimate answer as to why I was the way I was, I now knew how to advocate for myself. I finally said, this isn't going to change. You have to meet me here. People didn't like that. They did not like that because now I wasn't giving my power away. There was nothing wrong with me anymore. There was a reason, a logical explanation. I wasn't crazy anymore. So now you needed to move over and make room for me because I'm done making myself feel small and trying to squish myself into what works for you. You're going to have to help me feel comfortable now too. Bitch. People, they don't like that. They don't like a woman who knows her worth. They don't like a woman who doesn't second guess herself and question everything. Do we all remember the witch trials? Yeah, those were just regular women. I just want to remind you, those were not people casting spells like in Harry Potter. Those were women who inconvenienced the men in power, so they murdered them. Historically, people don't really like a woman who has something to say. Okay, so really me having this podcast is just healing my my ancestors' lineage, healing the world with my podcast. God. So now that I know how to advocate for myself, I can't be exploited anymore. And when I felt at peace with myself, everything shifted. So that was my mini witch trial in my own life that I went through where I was seeing, oh, wow, okay, so calling me crazy or saying that, if I just worked hard enough to change myself, then I wouldn't be this way anymore. That was very convenient for people who didn't really want me to have power because they wanted power over me. Now I see why reclaiming your power is quite rebellious. Before, I was putting myself on witch trial. I mean, I was kind of convinced to, but I was making it very easy. I was like, yeah, you're right. I guess I am crazy. So how do you do this? How do you find your truth? You have an inner voice. An inner voice. What is an inner voice? Okay, your mind is amazing. I love my mind. It has so many cool ideas. But it's not just fun ideas and creative ideas. It's also a collection of everything that you have inherited, everything you've ever heard, everything that's ever been passed down to you. It's full of a lot of garbage and trash too. Your body has a different wisdom. You could call it female intuition. You could call it whatever you want, but it is like a knowing that can't be argued with. Here's the thing. Your humanness is not an inconvenience. Why have we been taught to ignore our bodies? If you're exhausted, that's a signal, a sign to rest, not something that's in your way, not something to overcome. Oh, just keep going through the exhaustion, and then you'll one day, what? Collapse? God, these people need to calm the fuck down. Talking about just like work all day and never stop. Like, why? I'm so glad that we are moving away from that being glorified, because it's disgusting. There's a difference between fear and depletion. You wouldn't push through exhaustion. That doesn't make sense logically to do that. You will be able to show up better after you have rested. You will eventually hit a wall and you will collapse. That is how human bodies work. They were made to work that way. There's nothing wrong with that. Reclaiming your power looks like dropping from your mind into your body. Dropping from the thing in your head that goes, I should push through this exhaustion, into your body, which goes, why am I so exhausted? Something needs to shift. I'm not saying your body would have that much to say, but that would be the feeling. Something's off. I'm exhausted. I need to rest. Whereas your mind might be like, I can't rest. I have a deadline. You know, it would have like this whole like reasons why you couldn't. So that's the fear. The fear is it's in the thoughts. I'm not saying you can't feel fear in your body, because you can. But it is a sensation in your body. The story is in your mind. We can move through sensations. But if we don't ever get over the stories in our head, we'll just keep recreating that sensation forever. Your inner voice will never lie to you. No one can quiet it if you don't let them. And you already have access to this. If you want to book a session with me to help learn how to access your inner voice, my books are open for that. It's called an inner voice session. If you can't afford it right now, just try closing your eyes, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Do this for a while. Drop down. Feel the difference between what it feels like to be in your thoughts and then what it feels like to be in your body. Shift down to your body and ask a question and see what comes up. See if you can feel the difference between your mind and your body. Stick with it long enough to be able to move through the first discomfort. Just stay with it. Keep breathing like that and wait for an answer to come up from this part of you, because it will. And you will feel the difference between the thoughts and the knowing of your inner voice. I learned how to do this. I thought that it was going to be hard. I thought that it was going to be impossible because I have a really busy mind. It's actually very easy. My inner voice is always there. You might see visuals. You might have a knowing. You might have a feeling, but you'll know what it means. You will. You may not know how to interpret it to somebody else, but you'll know what it means. Experiment with that, with being able to move from a place of truth inside of you and not being at the mercy of every single thought that crosses your mind. This is empowerment without dependence. People don't want you empowered because then you can't be exploited. I want you to live in a world where power is distributed, not hoarded by billionaires who are sad losers who literally have no peers because they have to buy their love. Lame. And that starts with being honest with ourselves. If you want help, I'm here. And if you don't, you still have everything you need to do this, because the truth lives inside of you. It does. And no one can take that away from you. TED Talk over. The bad creatives, yeah. The bad creatives, the bad creatives.